Today's CBS This Morning News on the Go podcast is sponsored by Progressive.
Hey, we get it. You don't want to be hearing a Progressive commercial right now, so let us tell you something you do want to hear. No one is funnier than you. People laugh just thinking about the things you've said. I'm laughing at one of them right now. Coworkers repeat your jokes at the office, but they're never as good as when you tell them, and shame on them for trying. There. Don't you feel better? You'll also feel better knowing you could save when you bundle home and auto with Progressive. Although I'm sure you'd have a funnier way to say that. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Bundle discount not available in all states or situations.
Good morning to you and welcome to CBS This Morning. It's Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. I'm Gayle King. That's Anthony Mason. That's Tony DeCopa. We are ready. All 50 states have agreed to stop using Johnson & Johnson's COVID vaccine for now. More than 7.2 million Americans have received the one-dose shot, and at least 6 of them have developed serious blood clots. The CDC and the FDA say the condition appears to be extremely rare, and that's important, they say, but they've asked for the vaccine to pause out of an abundance of caution.
That pause is not expected to last long, but there are worries the move will cause more people to think twice about being vaccinated. Nancy Cordes is at the White House for us. Nancy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tony. The CDC is holding a meeting today to review those 6 cases, and the FDA is investigating as well. As the president's chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says that he anticipates this pause will last days, not weeks or months. And the White House is telling us that despite this setback, they still believe they are on track to make sure that every American who wants a shot will get one by the end of May.
Vaccine sites across the country had to make a quick pivot away from Johnson & Johnson Tuesday as states began canceling some appointments and rebooking others for different vaccines.
A little sad because I like the one and done.
FDA officials recommended the pause after 6 women in the U.S. developed serious blood clots.
It's out of an abundance of caution.
Johnson & Johnson described it as an extremely rare disorder as governors downplayed the news.
Hopefully this is just a small setback that we will overcome.
This is an abundance of caution.
But behind the scenes, in a conference call with White House officials, state leaders expressed frustration.
The ability for governors to reinstill confidence after something like this is 100 times harder than putting the pause on in the first place.
Kent Koster, the public health director in Kentucky's Purchase area, told us he's concerned yesterday's announcement will deter some people from getting any of the vaccines.
That is just frustrating for the providers because we know, we're there, we're ready, to give the vaccine, but the people just aren't coming in.
The White House insists the pace of vaccinations will not change much. About 95% of the supply so far has come from Pfizer and Moderna.
So there's enough vaccine that is basically 100% unquestionable for every single solitary American.
Dr. Anthony Fauci told CBS Evening News anchor and managing editor Norah O'Donnell recent recipients of the J&J shot should look out for symptoms, including severe headache, chest discomfort, and difficulty breathing.
It appears that this adverse event occurs within between 6 days and 13 days. So if you're beyond 4 weeks and you've had it a month or 2 ago, I think you really don't need to worry about anything.
Monica Roberts-Jenkins falls into that category.
It's been maybe about 4 weeks now.
The Houston paralegal says she would get the shot again.
There's side effects pretty much with anything that we take, right? Whether it's, surgeries, medicines, whatever.
Health experts still have not determined to what extent, if any, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine contributed to these very rare blood clots. But there is promising news this morning about the 2 other vaccines that are available to Americans. Moderna released updated data showing that its COVID vaccine is more than 95% effective against severe cases 6 months after the second dose. And Pfizer's CEO yesterday announced that the company would be boosting production and delivering 10% more doses to the U.S. by the end of May than previously announced. Anthony?
Yeah, both very encouraging numbers, Nancy. Thank you. U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy joins us now. Good morning, Dr. Murthy. I want to ask you that given how rare these blood clots are, 6 cases out of some 7 million doses administered so far, and the possibility that this could significantly increase vaccine hesitancy, Is there a risk that this pause is an overreaction?
Well, good morning. It's good to be with you today. And you're right that these cases are rare at this moment. We have 6 cases out of over 7 million doses administered. But what's very important is safety and instilling trust in the American public. And people need to know that the system is working for them, that we're being vigilant. And even though this wasn't an easy decision, it was the right decision to put a pause on administration of the vaccine and to give us a chance to do 2 things. One is investigate whether there is in fact a link between the vaccine and the 6 cases of dangerous blood clots. And second, to give us a chance to talk to the medical community and to help them understand what we are looking for and to also help understand how to treat these blood clots if they do in fact arise.
So what's your message to people who may feel after this news even more hesitant to get a vaccine?
Well, here's what I would say. Remember that, first of all, these are rare events. We are talking about 6 out of over 7 million doses of the vaccine administered. Second, just remember this as well. If you received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, or if a family member of yours received the vaccine, your likelihood of developing blood clots, especially these dangerous blood clots, is extremely rare. And you will likely be okay, just like the millions of others people who've had the vaccine. And finally, a really important message to send to everyone, which is that we are talking about one of the 3 vaccines offered here in the US. The vast majority of people, over 110 million, have received the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, and we still feel very confident about those vaccines. So I believe we are still on track to ensure we are vaccinating the country. I think we will find out within days what the analysis is of this, of this pause. And then we will be able to continue forward with our vaccination campaign.
Dr. Murthy, something keeps popping up on your screen. We want the viewers to know we see it too. We don't know what the hell it is. Everything is safe. Everything is good. But there's something that looks like a dog or something popping up around you. But all is good.
I'll show you. It's my little boy.
Oh, so sorry.
Sweetheart.
Well, at least we can explain. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Good morning to your son. Good morning. But I want to go back to Anthony's question for a second. If this is rare, and if you still feel that it's safe, why have the pause? Because all this does is give people who were hesitant to take the vaccine anyway. See, I told you they rushed it. It's not safe. And I know all the experts saying, don't worry, it's all good. This is still very, very frightening. And I know you've answered this question, but people are still extremely nervous. Why pause it if you still think it's safe?
Well, Gail, there are 2 reasons to pause. One is, again, to have a chance to do the actual investigation to see if there's a real link. And the second is to have that time to communicate with healthcare professionals about what to look for, but also how to treat this condition. See, Gail, what's different about these blood clots is they're not the average run-of-the-mill blood clot that we hear about all the time. These are an unusual type of clot that occurs when your levels of platelets or cells that help with clotting in the blood are actually low as well. And in that situation, you don't treat with the usual blood thinners, like heparin, for example, that you typically give in the hospital. That requires actually a very different treatment. And in fact, if you give the conventional treatment, you can worsen the situation. So this is why we wanted to have a chance to communicate openly with people. But remember this, these pauses are actually common when new vaccines and drugs are rolled out. So this is not unusual. We're just doing the due diligence we need to do to make sure everything is safe so we can continue with our vaccination efforts.
We need to be reminded of that. And kudos to you. Never even missing a beat with a son who clearly loves you, who's climbing all over you.
Very smooth.
Yeah.
Dr. Murthy, what's your son's name?
Yes.
So his name is Tejas. He's 4 years old, and we're very close.
And he loves his dad, clearly.
Well, thanks to you both for joining us this morning, Dr. Vivek Murthy.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it, guys. All right, shifting gears to a tough story. So a tough story out of Minnesota. The district attorney handling the Daunte Wright case says we may learn today if the officer who shot him will be charged. This comes after a 3rd night of protest in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. That's the city where Daunte Wright died. And also other demonstrations in Philadelphia, Chicago, and Dallas. Omar Villafranca is in Brooklyn Center, where police say Officer Kim Potter meant to reach for her taser before shooting and killing Daunte Wright. Omar, good morning to you.
Good morning. The National Guard is still here behind me looking over the scene after another night of protest despite a curfew. Pepper spray and, of course, flashbangs were used to disperse the crowd, and there were around 60 arrests. Yesterday, the chief of police and Officer Kim Potter both resigned, but some people say that Potter should have been fired.
And I never imagined this is what was going to happen. I just thought maybe he was being arrested.
Kate Wright, Dante's mother, said she was on the phone with the woman who was in the car with her son moments after the shooting.
And it was on a FaceTime. And she said, she was crying and screaming, and she said that they shot him. And she pointed the phone towards the driver's seat, and my son was laying there, unresponsive.
My Lord.
That was the last time that I seen my son.
Police say Dante Wright had been pulled over for an expired vehicle tag. They say officers tried to arrest him when they learned of an outstanding warrant and that he resisted. Police say Officer Kim Potter, who had been training a new officer, thought she reached for her taser. But she fired a gun instead. Officer Potter was a 26-year veteran of the police force. Along with Police Chief Tim Gannon, Potter offered her resignation Tuesday, saying in a letter she believes it is in the best interest of the community, the department, and my fellow officers if I resign immediately. Brooklyn Center Mayor Mike Elliott.
I'm hoping that this will help bring some calm to the community, although I think ultimately people want justice.
Why was she allowed to resign, and why didn't you fire her instead?
We were going through our own processes to make sure that we had all of the documentation in order to be able to do that.
Dante Wright, life matters.
In a show of solidarity, Wright's family met Tuesday with the family of George Floyd, just outside the courthouse where the murder trial of former officer Derek Chauvin is being held.
We're here, and we will fight for justice for this family, just like we're fighting for our brother.
At that press conference yesterday, I also asked, since Potter resigned and was not fired, would she still get her pension and be able to get another job in law enforcement? The mayor and the acting police chief could not answer that question. The mayor also was asking the case to be reassigned to the state attorney general, but the state AG says he feels confident the Washington County DA can handle this case. Gail?
It's a very good question you asked, Omar, because a lot of people are wondering, will she now be able to get another job? And that's a problem for many. Thank you very much. About 10 miles south of Brooklyn Center, Derek Chauvin's defense attorneys are working to counter dozens of prosecution witnesses who blame him for the death of George Floyd. Jamie Yuccas is following the trial in Minneapolis.
Any resistor, handcuffed or not, should go to the ground into a prone control position.
The defense's use of force expert Barry Broad said Chauvin was justified when he handcuffed George Floyd face down on the pavement.
Police officers don't have to fight fair. They're allowed to overcome your resistance by going up a level.
The prosecution questioned Broad's judgment on cross-examination.
What part of this is not compliant?
So I see his arm position in the picture that's posted.
Right.
That, a compliant person would have both their hands in the small of their back and just be resting comfortably, versus like he's still moving around.
Did you say resting comfortably?
I think he came off terribly.
Minnesota criminal defense attorney Joe Tamburino, who is not affiliated with the case, said Broad's testimony lacked empathy.
He said that the police don't have to fight fair. Actually, they do. The jury wants to see people on the stand who realize the gravity of the situation, regardless of whether they find that the use of force was reasonable or unreasonable.
Trying to show that Floyd was susceptible to stress and drugs, the defense brought out body cam video of a 2019 traffic stop in which Floyd was arrested. The now retired police officer and a retired paramedic seen on this video testified Floyd's blood pressure was high, and he admitted to taking opioids that day.
When we were in the car for the first 8 minutes, we were talking.
The defense also called Shawanda Hill to testify. She was in the SUV with Floyd the day he died and spoke about his physical state when police arrived.
He instantly grabbed the wheel, and he was like, please, please don't kill me. Please, please don't shoot me. Don't shoot me. What did I do? Just tell me what I did, please.
In total, the defense called 6 witnesses, with the majority spending less than 30 minutes on the stand. Despite that whirlwind, jurors were seen taking lots of notes. Medical experts are up next, with still no word on whether or not Chauvin will testify. Anthony?
Jamie, thank you. And later in this broadcast, attorney Benjamin Crump will join us. The Biden administration has a new deadline to end America's longest war, and it is 20 years to the day after the 9/11 attacks that started it. The president plans to announce today that all U.S. combat troops will start leaving Afghanistan by May 1st and will be out by September 11th. The Trump administration had agreed to a total withdrawal by May 1st. In a deal struck with the Taliban, more than 2,300 Americans have died in Afghanistan. Holly Williams has reported extensively from the region. Holly, what's the risk with carrying out this withdrawal?
Good morning. Well, the fear in Afghanistan is that U.S. troops leaving will open the door to more chaos and more bloodshed and hand even greater power to the Taliban and their harsh Islamic rule. The group actually controls more territory now than it has at any time since the U.S.-led invasion in 2001. So after nearly 20 years trying to bring peace and stability to Afghanistan following the September 11 attacks, which Americans have paid for with blood and treasure, U.S. officials now apparently acknowledge that Afghanistan's problems simply cannot be solved by the American military. It's worth pointing out that the U.S. is not the first country to get bogged down in a military quagmire in Afghanistan. It happened to the Russians and the British in the past. Part of the calculation may be this. Unlike in Iraq, where extremist groups have plotted or inspired terrorism in the U.S., a U.S. official said that the threat to America emanating from Afghanistan doesn't require a military footprint. But Tony, you'll doubtless remember that the Taliban previously provided Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden with a safe haven.
We will not forget. Holly Williams for us in London. Holly, thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the CBS This Morning podcast.
Be sure to subscribe to get daily podcast originals.
You can watch the CBS This Morning broadcast Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on your local CBS station or live on the CBS All Access app.